everybody's going to have issues at some point. Everybody is going to have some bad mental health days. So if we talk about it more, it becomes more of a normal thing because people are going to get older, but they're going to have these conversations in the back of their pocket.
Welcome to the Be Real, Be Well project. What makes this project unique is that you get to hear from students and hear their perspectives. Today's topic is mental health. Our hope is that after you hear from the students that you will feel inspired to have your own conversations about mental health. Let's take a look. Have you ever noticed that we're far more comfortable talking about physical health than mental health? When we have physical ailments or an illness, we're far more likely to go to the doctor and seek expert advice from a medical expert than when we're feeling emotionally distressed. We're far less likely to go talk to a mental health expert. Why is that?
Middle school people are almost like embarrassed or ashamed because they feel like maybe other people aren't going through the same thing.
I think it's vulnerability. I think it's hard to open up to people if you don't trust them. And I think a part of that being in high school is that there's a lot of gossip and there's drama and people tell each other stuff. And so it's hard to be able to trust people and build relationships to where you can feel comfortable talking about specific things.
I think a lot of times people don't want to bring up something that's hard to talk about, especially in like social settings. And a lot of people I feel like don't want to be a burden to other people. If someone's dealing with something really heavy and they bring it up to a friend, I feel like a lot of times people might fear that they're putting that on someone else or burdening someone else.
I think a lot of it does have to do with the culture created like in a school setting, specifically in middle school. It's such like a concentrated group of students that if no one's talking about mental health, then like the isolation and the feelings of isolation just increases.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's hard because if you have a broken leg, you can point to this and say, this is where I'm hurting. But when you're struggling with mental health challenges, it's pretty invisible. So it's difficult to prove to other people that you're even going through something because there's nothing that you can point to.
What exactly is mental health? Some might say it's pretty simple. It just refers to the thoughts and feelings that we have about our daily lives. But mental health experts believe that it's a little more complicated. They believe that it's important to consider some of the factors that impact how we think and feel. Some of those factors are physical factors, psychological and emotional factors, behavioral factors, and environmental factors. Let's take a look at each of those factors. Physical factors refers to our body, our biology, our brain, how our brain is wired, and how it all works together. Psychological and emotional factors refer to the thoughts and feelings that we have about our lives. Behavioral factors refer to the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, whether they be conscious or unconscious, simply our behaviors. And finally, environmental factors refer to the different settings that we spend our life in. So think about it for a moment. You might spend time with family or in social circles, in class, out of class, and even consider things like cultural and political factors that can have an impact on your emotional well-being. All of those factors combined have an impact on our mental and emotional well-being. Now, we all know that it's not that easy to talk about how we're really feeling. But one thing that I've noticed is that more people in the public realm are starting to talk about their own mental health. You may have noticed that athletes, entertainers, and other public figures are starting to share their personal stories about challenges that they've had with their mental health. My guess is that they're talking about their challenges in hopes that other people will feel motivated to start thinking and talking about their own mental health.
I definitely think it's important starting in middle school because I think that this is a time that a lot of people start to experience like different mental health issues, and just like there's a lot of changes going on at this time. So I think that there's definitely like people start to like discover different emotions that they may not have like felt.
Especially in middle school, I think it's important just because that's when it starts to be the most important to understand yourself and the other people around you.
Yeah, I think in middle school, you're just starting on this journey of figuring yourself out and, understanding your own identity. And when you have these struggles, if you learn at such a young age in middle school that it's not okay to talk about them, I think you're going to keep that with you for a long time. And it's only going to get harder and harder to talk about it the longer you wait. So starting really young with these conversations, I think is really crucial to just benefit everyone.
I like to think about mental health in terms of the concept of balance. So if someone asks you how you're doing and you're feeling pretty well, the chances are that you're feeling like your life is in balance. The reverse could be true too. If you're not feeling well, you're likely feeling like your life is out of balance. Speaking of balance, let's take a look at the scale. The scale shows two platforms, each with different weights. So if we're going to use the scale metaphor and apply it to our mental health, you could think of one platform holding your challenges and the other platform holding your support system and your resources. Let's hear from the students about what types of things are challenging and stressful during the middle school years.
For me, I feel like just friend conflicts and worrying about like what other people think of you and not really having like a solid idea of who you are, like what your identity is, and just feeling like lost and trying to find your group and like who you fit in when.
When I was in middle school, I know I felt like really isolated and really alone from a lot of my peers. And I felt like my experience wasn't something that I could very easily talk about because it wasn't something that I felt was good, where I felt like maybe other problems would be easier to talk about, like failing a test or schoolwork, where like deeper emotional stuff just felt extremely like unique to myself in like the worst possible way.
I remember in middle school feeling so alone in what I was struggling with. I was really struggling with a lot, and I just thought I wasn't allowed to talk about it. Like, I just thought that wasn't something people did. I didn't see people around me talking about what they were going through, so I really felt like I was the only one, and I felt like I was super weird, and it was just not okay for me to talk about it with anyone. Also, just dealing with like coming to terms with who I was and like self-esteem issues. I think so many middle schoolers go through that. But you put on this facade of being super confident. Like I remember being like the class clown in school and then going home and feeling really bad about myself.
And you have stuff you need to do too, like the homework you need to complete before class. You have more and more responsibility as you're getting older. And also a lot of people at this time, I think, have stuff going on at home that's starting to affect them more.
Yeah. When you start to think about what is my life going to start to look like after middle school, then that becomes really stressful, because going from elementary school to middle school, it's not that big of a deal. You're still a kid, but when you start to become a teenager and then that leads to adult and you start to have choices on what happens in your life, that could be very stressful.
For me, it was definitely like just finding my people and also being comfortable with myself and all the judgment that's casted in that era of middle school especially. That's kind of, I thought, for me and the people around me was the biggest issue, is just dealing with like the scrutiny from other kids, because middle school kids are harsh. So it's definitely being able to overcome that as a kid.
So we heard about quite a few things that can be challenging. Let's hear what the students are doing to find support and relief and balance during times of stress.
For me, some really important things are just like having a routine schedule. If you're having a bad day, it may not help like fix your mental health instantly, but it's really good for like long term, like getting to sleep at the same time and eating around the same time, being consistent, and also, having a good sleep schedule so you don't wake up grumpy and grouchy and make your mental health even worse.
I think for me personally, I do a lot of things to distract myself from if I'm having a bad day and then I start to go down the spiraling path of bad thoughts. I've been doing my homework with music, so I've been having a playlist on it gets me a little bit more productive, but also doing activities that make you not think about stuff that much. So I swim a lot. And when I swim, I don't really think about other things. I think about swimming, or I think about something that is not really stressful because I'm putting all my emotional and physical energy into swimming. And I also have found out that reading, because you have to concentrate the whole time, is really great if you are getting a lot of anxiety, because you can just go read and then you can't really think about anything else because you're just reading.
I mean, I see a specific anxiety therapist once a week, so that's helpful. And I've been going to therapy for like 4 years, and I love to go watch the sunset, and that puts things into perspective for me and brings me a lot of calmness.
We've known each other ever since we were like 4 years old. So we've definitely built a relationship growing up, and I think we can definitely say we're comfortable telling each other a lot of things and anything that goes on in our lives. And so I think that's just really important. And I think we are able to build that relationship just over time by opening up and telling each other basically just everything. Being able to be honest with those around you who you trust is really important.
Yeah, for sure. Building a stable support group around you and also just prioritizing things that make you happy and is kind of what I've found to just make my overall existence the best. Not sacrificing your own happiness for others' happiness is definitely something I've learned through high school.
It's pretty inspiring hearing from the students and all the ways that they find support. Everyone seemed really different in the way that they are getting through challenging times. One thing's for sure, all students agreed that finding a trusted friend or a trusted adult that you can talk to is really, really important. The other thing that's really clear to everyone is that navigating your mental health is not a simple task. A few suggestions. Number one, try to find a trusted person to talk to, as I mentioned. And number two, have a look at your mental health scale. Take a look at your challenge side. What things are hard for you right now? What of all of those things stands out the most? And then have a look at your supports. Are they the right supports that you have? Do you need anything else that you think would alleviate some of the stress and some of the challenges that you're facing? From all of us to you, we want to thank you for joining us today. Be true to yourself, be real, and be well.
I think that it's important to have kind of like the name, like be real. It's something that's authentic because a lot of times I feel like these videos and projects are often done by adults who just don't really understand. Or they're often very like, I don't know, cringy or not very, it's hard to take them seriously because they feel very like surface level and they don't feel very authentic or real. So I think it's important to see other people who are like you or your peers talking about it because it really creates that sense of like you're not alone more than like a production made by like adults that don't really get it.
Yeah, I think like also when you're like going through these changes, it's like sometimes hard to realize that you don't like have to change yourself for like for other people or like to try to fit in or to try to like be in a certain like social group or just because you like feel out of place. Just like respecting and loving like every aspect about yourself is definitely like super important. And I think that like in middle school it's definitely like very hard to realize that.
For me personally, I feel like when I like most struggled with anxiety was actually elementary school. And I went to therapy then and I absolutely hated it because I thought I was the only person doing it and I thought I was like so weird. And I wish that I had known then, and I'm sure this is applicable to middle schoolers also. I wish I had known then that so many other people are doing the same thing and like struggling with the same stuff. So I feel like the more aware people are of it, the less like weird or strange they'll feel. Yeah, I'm actually like writing a college essay about this because I have a tendency to like talk about mental health a lot, and it's been something I've been doing my entire life. But I do it in a way to like make others feel comfortable, to create an environment where other people will do the same with me. And so I like strongly identify. Like, I really like this project. It follows a lot of the things that I like value, I guess. So I think starting that from a younger age in middle school is really important and super cool.
I think because I know that there's a few people in my life who suffer from it pretty bad, that it helps when people understand it and that they can offer support and they can figure out ways to have conversations about it. And because everybody's going to have issues at some point, everybody is going to have some bad mental health days. So if we talk about it more, it becomes more of a normal thing. And if we do it at this age or we just start with the younger generations, it's going to become more of an inclusive thing because people are going to get older, but they're going to have these conversations in the back of their pocket.
Yeah. I think it's a really important skill to develop like early on and grow up on it. My mom's a therapist, so I've kind of grown up with this knowledge of the brain and mental health that she slowly like layered on as I got older. And it's helped me develop this like, I guess, toolkit of just knowledge and things I can help other people and myself with. And I want everybody to have that.
I think we talked about this a lot already, but when I was in middle school, I know I felt, as I've mentioned, like really isolated and really alone from a lot of my peers. And I felt like my experience wasn't something that I could very easily talk about because it wasn't something that I felt was like good, where I felt like maybe other problems would be easier to talk about, like failing a test or schoolwork, where like deeper emotional stuff just felt extremely like unique to myself in like the worst possible way. So like through peer resource and through like other resources at our school, it's just like really helped me come to terms that like there's so many modes of support that you can reach out to like deal with problems that may be specific to yourself or maybe like um, similar to like another group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt similarly. I remember in middle school feeling so alone in what I was struggling with. I was really struggling with a lot, and I just thought I wasn't allowed to talk about it. Like, I just thought that wasn't something people did. I didn't see people around me talking about what they were going through, so I really felt like I was the only one, and I felt like I was super weird, and it was just not okay for me to talk about it with anyone. And like, I don't even know how I dealt with that because like now I always talk to people around me when I'm struggling, and it's really what helps me. But in middle school, it was like, no, this is not something people talk about. This is just something like you hide. And also just dealing with like coming to terms with who I was and like self-esteem issues. I think so many middle schoolers go through that. But you put on this facade of being super confident. Like I remember being like the class clown in school and then going home and feeling really bad about myself. So I think it's so important because if I had seen something like this in middle school, I think I would have felt a lot less alone.
Yeah, I think in general, the class of peer resource has really showed me that no matter where we come from, everybody has similar issues in their lives, and we all have the same, I guess, yeah, what I said, just same problems and whatnot, even if we don't believe it, whether it's the popular kid or it's the kid in the music band or whatever it is, or the kid on the quarterback of the football team, whatever it is, we all share common interests and common issues. And so I think coming together and just being open and willing to talk about it has really given me a new perception on how Redwood or everybody around Redwood and just who we all are as a human. Because I think it's just so interesting figuring out that we're all so similar in so many ways, yet we all act so differently around each other just because of social construct or because different popularity or different groups. And so I think it was just having others be open around me is really what allowed me to be open around them. And even people in the class I'm still not all that close with, I've talked with outside of class and I've gone to know them as a person. I think that's probably been one of the best experiences of my high school.
Yeah, it's totally true. And for me, I'm someone who always wants to be able to help other people. And this class has given me an amazing outlet for that. And this project is also something that I feel like is super important to me because of I like to know that what I'm doing is helping others and that I'm having a lasting impact beyond my immediate um, self.